All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another live edition of the Global Reality right here on the Global Reality Radio Network with me, your host, Josh Reeves. It's the 18th of June, 2015, and we thank you so much for being with us here tonight for another edition of the broadcast. We're back up and running now. If you didn't know, we're back up here and broadcasting and going strong with the shows, so it's a good thing to be back, and glad to be back here to talk to all of you about the various things concerning all this crazy information. So that's what we're going to do here tonight. We've got a big ton of interesting news stories and whatnot to talk about with you here tonight. As I sort of mentioned in our last show last night, that being our first one, back here on regular broadcasting. So if you didn't get a chance to go hear that show, definitely go get a chance to go listen to it. I put it up on YouTube as well, just so people in the YouTube world could know that we're back broadcasting. I'm not going to be putting them up there regularly, but I at least wanted to put the first one up there so people could know that we're back and how to find us and all the rest of that. But I had mentioned last night and talked about extensively in last night's broadcast about, just how much disinformation and fake stories and everything is out there, which I'm sure many of you have experienced in your own right and are just as frustrated with as I am. So, if you listen to older shows and if you've been a listener of this show for quite some time, you'll know that, I don't cover the same stories anymore. And sometimes if you hear things, or if you don't hear things, rather, that you would expect me to cover, hear me talk about, don't always assume that's because I haven't heard about it. Believe me, I'm looking at news 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's very little does anything go under my radar that I don't catch. But sometimes I make a conscious decision and conscious effort not to cover some of these stories or some of the daily news stories that come out. Why? Because so many of them have a hidden agenda, and it's very easy to let emotions run away when you get to starting to cover some of these news stories. And that's exactly what the elite want from us right now. That's what they want. They want us acting on our emotions. They want us acting crazy and acting emotionally so that we don't think and act rationally. I've been saying this for years. But I think more and more with these stories that come out that are aimed at divide and conquer through racial lines and lines of hatred and everything else and gender, it's very easy to fall on a side of these things, and what we have to understand is that's exactly what they want us to do. They want us to fall in line with the side on these things. I've seen what's been going on here for years. This most recent thing in South Carolina. Obviously this is another one of these, SSRI-related mind control shooting things. It's clear that's what this is again. And again, they're trying to, every week now, they're trying to divide us racially, get people on a side, and it's just bait, man. Everything is bait these days. Everything. And they're just waiting to see who's going to get caught. And my advice to you is to do everything in your power to not get caught by one of these bait traps. And that's what a lot of these fake news stories and stuff that come out are too. It's just fucking clickbait, man. Like the one I mentioned last night that the guy posted that, believed was real. And I'm sitting there going, dude, THC is an organic compound. It is not going to be found. It's impossible it would be found float on some meteorite. And of course, it was fake and all that stuff, as I mentioned, but that's not the point. It still gets people. People see an article like that. It doesn't matter if it's true. Doesn't matter one iota. Somebody just made money off of you because you clicked on that link. And it's the same thing with all these divide and conquer stories and all this stuff, surround this race baiting stuff. If it ain't race bait, it's clickbait. You know what I mean? Maybe we need to put that on a t-shirt and sell it at the website for a fundraiser or something. Because it is the truth, isn't it? I mean, really. Isn't that really everything we see these days? If it ain't race bait, it's clickbait. Or gender bait. Everything. And it's just another thing that serves to keep us divided and keep us against each other so we don't stand united against them. That's the real purpose of all this bait. So I'd like to stand up here myself and have every one of you stand up as well and say, I'm not going to take the fucking bait. You don't cuss, just say, I'm not going to take the damn bait, or I'm just not going to take the bait, period. Whatever you want to say. Fit it into your own personal little paradigm, but declare that you're not going to take the bait anymore. And that's what a lot of this stuff is. And so, with that said, my point being, if you find that, see, now my attitude is I just want to cover stories that I feel that I can add stuff from my own personal knowledge base to that will, help you understand a story a bit more than you would on your own. Maybe you'll see something from one of these stories that I read that you maybe didn't see on your own. But because, I've been researching this stuff for so long and I've have tons of stuff stored in my brain about all this, tons of useless information, it gives me a leg up and I tend to see some things sometimes. And that's what I like to cover. Those are the things that make it interesting for me to talk about. So I always kind of feel the need to kind of explain myself periodically because we have new people listening all the time, don't really know what my vibe's about. I don't really understand what I'm about. I'm not going to beat the same dead horse that they beat on, 1,000 other different shows. I mean, sometimes you do. Sometimes, there's a story and it's so big, it's going to be something you're covering and everybody else is covering too. But I've just decided to, as a personal sort of credo of mine, to, not take the bait, not allow myself, because it's very easy to get, even though we consider ourselves to be alternative media or whatever have you, it's very easy to fall in and be baited into the same sort of paradigms and ways of thinking. And people sometimes get lost in that. And they get lost in that fact when they start covering these news stories. They come from the standpoint, and the well-intentioned standpoint for most part, that they want to cover stories in a different way than the mainstream media does. But really, honestly, a lot of people and most people just fall back into the same old thing. And I just don't want to do that anymore. So anyway, with that said, that's that really is why I choose and will continue to choose what stories I choose to talk about. And they're based on that. So again, if if there's something that you feel is important that you don't hear me cover, by all means, send it to me. But also at the same time, don't always assume. People do that a lot with me. It's frustrating. They assume just because they don't hear me talk about something, that means I don't know about it. And 99% of the time, it's something I know about, but I just make a conscious decision not to talk about whatever that specific issue might be. So, with that said, we've got a lot of those to get into with you here tonight. My website where this broadcast originates from is theglobalreality.com. That's theglobalreality.com. You'll find everything pertaining to our work up there. Get yourself a membership to our 128K members archives. You can also find start having the RSS feeds and the new shows up there as well. We're going to have we'll have a 32K daily podcast for free. We'll still have the 128K members archives high quality, and we'll have the 128K live audio stream here. So lots of different ways now for you to be able to catch the show. So no excuses. Excuse free here. Everybody's going to have a chance to hear it and hear the new shows as they're coming out. We just ask that you hit our contribution banner there on the right-hand side of the page. We'll have a monthly goal that we need to reach every month by the end of the month, beginning of the next month. And that's going to enable us to be able to offer shows somewhat free. We'll still have the paid membership archive so you can get stuff in high quality, and it'll be uploaded there before it's uploaded anywhere else. So rest assured that if you have a membership to our paid archives, you will get it before everybody else. They go there first. For instance, last night when the show was done, that was the first place it went. Was there on those archives. And also be sure and if you're not a member of our Facebook page, it's the Global Reality Radio Network. The Global Reality Radio Network. That's what we're listed as on Facebook. Go over there and give us a like if you haven't yet on Facebook, because I tend to post stuff there as it's coming out, the newest info or newest stuff that, that's just the best way to keep up with the most current stuff. Shows get posted there first. So definitely, if you have not become a member of our Global Reality Radio Network Facebook page, please do so, and get your friends to do so and whatnot. There, we will still be continuing to have the book readings and whatnot. I'm not going to be doing those in the context of live shows anymore, though, because, well, sometimes, I like I am now, I'm working on a film, and the shows are sporadic sometimes. And if we start a book, it's very difficult to go back, and sometimes I lose interest after, if I've been working on other stuff, it's hard for me to go back and get back into reading another book. So what I've started to do now is I've started to do the audiobooks, because I have people suggest I do this for years. I only recently finally started listening to them about it. But now I'm doing the audiobook readings. We'll continue to do those. I've got a lot more on deck to do for you all. But as it stands right now, I have no time to do any new audiobooks until after I get the Spellcasters out. But our newest one, which came out a few months ago, if you haven't heard that yet, you can purchase it right now at my website. Atlantis and the Giants, this very rare book, Atlantis and the Giants. If you haven't heard that one yet, you definitely need to go get yourself a copy of that right now. It's only $10, 7 hours long, 7 hours of audio. It's really, really good. I think it's one of the best, if not the best, out of all the audiobooks that we've ever done. So if you go to my website, theglobalreality.com, right there in the middle of the page, it'll say the Global Reality Shop. Purchase all of Josh Reeves' available documentaries, including the latest volume, The Lost Secrets of Ancient America, along with all the audiobooks. So you click on that, go in there, and that will take you to the payloads page. And we've got quite a few new things in there that I'd like to mention that have been added there since last we've had any shows. I didn't mention this last night. We've got several new things in there. I want to thank Illuminated Scam, Marcus, my boy there in the UK, for putting together a lot of these different audio compilations and whatnot for us. Much appreciated what he does. And some of those are available there in the download store. The Transhumanism series that he put together, that's drawn from many, many years and years of shows of me talking about transhumanism, some of the best info, and he collated all that and put that together in an audio collection for us. You can get that up there. The payload store, it's only $8 for a download, 3 hours plus of audio. Really, really good information. If you don't want to try to go back and track all the old shows and all the stuff where I've talked about that, it's a very good compilation if you're interested in the subject of transhumanism and mankind merging with machines and all that. Definitely check that out. Another one we have up there that he did for us as well. Another one that was really highly requested for many years We have Josh Reeves' funniest rants and skits. That's 3+ hours of audio, only $8. This hilarious 3-hour collection is called From Some of the Funniest Moments of Me live on the Global Reality Show from 2007 to the present. And so if you want to hear some of the funny stuff, some of the, there is some funny shit in there. I have to say, there's some stuff in there that when I listened to it, I'd forgotten I even said. It's crazy. I was listening to stuff, I'm like, where the fuck did this shit come from? You can really tell that it's just part of, doing something live in front of a microphone. You just channel things sometimes. And they don't even come from your own brain. They just come from the ether somewhere. Boy, there's some stuff in there that fits under that category for sure. I mean, it was cracking my own self up listening to that. But that's another new addition there. Of course, as I mentioned, the Atlantis and the Giants audiobook, $10. We also have another thing we've had by large request is a 7 audiobook mega pack. If you want to buy a big, gigantic zipped file that has a ton of the classic audiobooks in it for a low price of only $40, definitely get yourself one of those. You get The Lost Book of Enki, you get Atlantis and the Giants, you get the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, you get the Kabbalion, the Gods of Eden, the End of Days, and There Were Giants Upon the Earth. So a lot of those Sitchin readings I did, almost all of them I think are all in there. So if you're into those, definitely check that out. We've also got all of my documentary films up there are available. Remastered versions of The Secret Rite Volume 1 and remastered versions of The Secret Rite Volume 2. If you ever saw the original Secret Rite Volume 2 version that was on YouTube or on disc, the software version that was out at that time was plagued with audio issues, but we were on a deadline to get the film out, so we just, we couldn't wait for them to upgrade the software. We just had to put it out as is. But now I've gone back and remastered and fixed that audio issue. So the Secret Rite Volume 2 it just looks and sounds better than it ever has. You can get all those up there at our little download store, at my website, theglobalreality.com. And again, we've got our Global Reality June 2015 monthly operating cost banner there to support our work, our Rockwall Dig project banner where you can support our work, and also our one-time donation button where you can put in any amount you want to contribute to our work. And we also have the Amazon wish list if you want to get something off of there. Hey, guess who's got a birthday coming up in a couple of weeks? We need some help getting some stuff for the soundtrack for the Spellcaster. So if you want to pick us up something from there, it's a great idea. Great thing to do. All right. theglobalreality.com. Again, you'll find all the stream links and everything up there, all the ways you can find the show. Please spread it around. Let everybody know we are back in the saddle and broadcasting here at theglobalreality.com. Let's get into our stack O News tonight. This falls right under with what I was talking about last night as far as the disinformation and fake news stories being planted. As many of you know, my film series that I did a few years ago, The Secret Rite Volume 1 and 2, dealing with the Council for National Policy and the secretive right-wing groups that really are just part of the divide and conquer phony left-right paradigm. That's the whole point. There's been so many, that film has gone over so many small-minded people's heads. There's people out there who just don't get the film because they don't understand the whole thing, because they've been programmed and led by these supposed truthers and patriots and all this crap to believe that the whole conspiracy of world government is completely done by, left-wing communist Jews and right-wing Christians are the saviors and the gods, and they never do anything wrong. And that was always suspicious to me when I first came into doing this stuff. So when I found out about the Council for National Policy, it really made a whole lot of sense. And so I still keep up with these various outlets, especially the CMP-related outlets. I pay attention to what these guys say because they tend to let out a lot of their agendas and a lot of what they're focusing on in their publications and their websites. And, occasionally you get some insight into these CMP meetings, the secretive meetings after they've happened, or information on where they're going to be at prior to that. So I really pay attention. I make sure that I've got stuff linked into their pages and whatnot. And it sucks sometimes because you'll get somebody, you'll meet somebody new, and they'll be, you'll see something on your Facebook page or something. I had this happen with somebody one time. Like, dude, why do you like the Heritage Foundation? I guess sometimes it shows stuff on your news feed and whatnot on Facebook that you can't see. And I guess there was something that somebody saw and it said, Josh Reeves likes the Heritage Foundation. And it just sounded, why the fuck did you, of all people, like the Heritage Foundation? And of course I had to explain, well, it's know your enemy type thing. You keep up with these guys. I keep up with these asshats to see what they're saying, what they're talking about. And so the Heritage Foundation actually runs, if you don't know about the Heritage Foundation, I covered them extensively in my Secret Right films. They're one of these CMP-related organizations. In fact, Alex Jones used to give out these, some of you may remember this, he used to give these pocket constitutions out. You'd put one in every order. If you ordered movies or something from him, he'd put them in there. And I remember pointing out way back in like 2008 or something, it just went over the radar of people, I guess. No one really realized the significance of it until I pointed it out, that they actually had Heritage Foundation logos on them. I've still got some of those somewhere. I have to dig them out. But, yeah, he was distributing these pocket constitutions that were printed by the Heritage Foundation. And after, looking into the connections to Alex Jones and all these other supposed conspiracy theorists and truthers and patriots, whatever you want to call them, 9/11 truthers, and finding those connections back to these groups, I mean, that was a huge thing. And went, oh my God, there it is. There's another piece of the puzzle. So they have a website called the Daily Signal. It's run by the Heritage Foundation, and they put this article out last week entitled Think That News Story Online is a Hoax. It may be written by Russian propagandists. Did you ever hear the one about the Colombian chemicals factory in Centerville, Louisiana, blown up by ISIS terrorists on September 11th? Possibly not, because it didn't happen. On Twitter and YouTube, however, such a news story did make the rounds, planted, it appears, by a St. Petersburg-based Russian propaganda outfit innocently named the Internet Research Agency. The agency was created by Russian President Vladimir Putin. According to the New York Times, whose Sunday edition carried a detailed unveiling of the scam, it took the Russians months to prepare and orchestrate the deception. Now, I've been seeing this for quite some time. I've been seeing there's a Russian connection here with some of these. I've seen Ron Paul praising Russia and saying we need to be working with Russia, and I was very, very, very suspect of that. And, for quite some time, I've been monitoring this connection, and up until recently, until I started finding some of the stuff that I've discovered inadvertently while making this Spellcasters documentary on who controls Hollywood and the stuff about Scientology and finding, connections of the Scientology to, truth movement people, as I discussed in the little preview film that's up on YouTube. One of the things I started to uncover was this connection to this Russian connection. The Colombian chemicals fake is an example of the Russian government's determination to get into the heads of Americans through the deployment of an army of hundreds of so-called trolls who prowl the internet to spread disinformation and attack those who are deemed enemies of the Kremlin. I mean, this is exactly what I was talking about last night. Creating the hoax involved in setting up fake Twitter accounts, commentary in Arabic claiming ISIS involvement, and fake Louisiana TV images on YouTube. For a few moments, it had local people severely rattled. The Internet Research Agency is a nondescript bunker of an office building in St. Petersburg. It's a so-called troll farm. Its employees spend their days creating phony news stories, anti-American and anti-Ukrainian propaganda, and engage in online harassment and endless arguments in comment sections of websites. I mean, we already know this has been going on here in our own country with, the Cass Sunstein stuff that came out a few years ago. But I was surprised and shocked to see the Heritage Foundation's own website even mentioning this or covering this. And I was even more shocked when I got to other parts of this, which we'll get to in a minute. I don't want to ruin the surprise, but this all has a big reveal at the end of it that I'll get to that really made me perplexed. I don't want to mention it yet. I don't want to blow the load too early here. But I've been victim to this stuff for years. There's been, fake phony trolls and just smear campaigns and ad hominem attacks. And I've known that for years this stuff was not just coming from, nobody's got time to sit in chat rooms 24/7 and just troll. That you can tell these people are getting paid to do it when they have no other life but to just troll 24/7. During a hearing of the House Foreign Affairs Committee in April, Russia's weaponization of information, British journalist Peter Pernostov described Russia's actions as an attempt to undermine the concepts of object reality itself. If you can put enough disinformation out on the web, you can create so much confusion that people distrust everything they read. Needless to say, this will also lead to paralysis and political inaction. Fuck. That's exactly what I was talking about last night, ladies and gentlemen. That's it. And that's what it's done. They have put enough disinformation out there. They have poisoned the well to such an extent that they have created confusion to the point where people distrust everything, even the stuff that actually is based in factual information. Needless to say, this will also lead to paralysis and political inaction. Exactly. It's led to apathy. It's led to people not even wanting to do research or look into this stuff or listen to shows and watch films and stuff like what I do because they've poisoned the well to such an extent. Under Putin, and especially since Russia annexed Crimea and fomented a secessionist rebellion in eastern Ukraine, Russian propaganda has surged to levels not seen since the Cold War. Now, this is the part that threw me aback right here. Get ready for it. You ready? It includes not just the Internet Research Agency, but also RT, Russia Today, Russia's global cable channel, Sputnik, a prolific Russian propaganda website, and funding for media campaigns in Europe. Now, that right there. Now, I covered years ago the fact that RT Russia Today is a KGB. A lot of people know that. It is a KGB-funded fake news organization. But many people out there, conspiracy theorists, fanatics, and truthers, and whatever labels you want to call people who are into this kind of stuff, actually believe Russia Today is actual real TV. And they have people like Alex Jones on there on the regular, and Luke Radowski and whoever else they've had on there. Remember when Roseanne Barr was saying that Hollywood was controlled by MK Ultra? Well, she may be right, but did she say that? It wasn't as big of a deal to me after I found out she said it on Russia Today and not on NBC or anything else. Not that those news agencies have any fucking credibility either. Give me a break. But the point of the matter is, it's not like she had the balls to say this in some, mainstream news interview. She said this on Russia Today. Now, what's fascinating is, as I mentioned, I've seen, It seems that there's a lot of connections to people in the truth movement and patriot movement to Russia. And there seems to be some connection going on there. And it, as I mentioned, it's been kind of unclear to me what that is. But after I started uncovering these connections of Scientology to some of these same individuals in the truth movement and whatnot, and then I learned that during the height of the Cold War, L. Ron Hubbard was using his intelligence gathering assets. I mean, he turned Scientology into a massive, really a clandestine intelligence gathering operation. That's really what he was doing with a lot of it. Especially when you'd get people in these, auditing sessions and get them to divulge all this information. I mean, L. Ron Hubbard, it's admitted, was selling secrets to the Russians in the heart of the Cold War. And when I started to see that connection and the connection of Scientology to these current crop of truth people and, Ron Paul and Alex Jones, and then you see those guys also connected to these groups that are controlled, CCHR and whatnot, that are controlled by Scientology. And then they're also their connection to Russia Today and all these KGB news fronts and Ron Paul telling people to support Russia. I just started to go, well, here it is. And I think that has a lot to do with some of the stuff that I've found through the years about, the truth movement being a front for some of these white supremacist organizations and people who were into, the whole white power element of it, which is one of the hidden dirty secrets of all this stuff. That's what they've been doing for years. There's a direct connection between the white power stuff and the Scientology stuff for sure. But I was a bit bemused that the Heritage Foundation, who are really one of the major players in all this, would allow that information about Russia Today being a fake internet thing be on their website. But, I'm sure the guys in the upper echelons don't control everything that gets put out, just like somebody like Sumner Redstone that controls, TV and cable channels and whatnot, doesn't, have final say over everything that goes out on one of his networks. So very interesting article there, and really ties right in with what I was talking about on last night's broadcast. Let's see what else we got here. Another suspicious banker death this week. Anybody got a running tally on how many this is now? J.P. Morgan Vice Chairman Jimmy Lee dies this week. I can't even keep up. I mean, I know it was somewhere approaching 100, I think, last year. I haven't even been able to keep up. I've had a lot of questions about this, and I haven't really covered it a lot. But as many of these things are, it is my opinion that these mysterious banker deaths, there's definitely something here more than meets the eye, as there are with almost all of these various stories and happenings. This is from an article called Wall Street on Parade. Wall Street banker deaths continue. Where are the serious investigations? Last Thursday, 29-year-old Thomas J. Hughes, later described by his brother as one of the happiest people I know, allegedly took his life by jumping from a luxury apartment building at 1 West Street in Manhattan before any serious investigation had taken place. The New York tabloids had dismissed the matter as a suicide, and Hughes was an investment banker on Wall Street. But these are all, see, that's what they always do in any kind of phony suicides. They'll declare them suicides, and then that'll go to the media long before it's ever even investigated. And that goes against all protocol. That's the exact same thing they did to Kurt Cobain. And that's one of the key things that you know that you're dealing with a cover-up. Because the only person who has the ability to make the legal determination of something being a suicide is the medical examiner. And sometimes it could take weeks for the medical examiner's report to come back. But what you have here is you have police and investigators and beat cops and people and whatnot, homicide detectives. They don't even bring homicide investigators out if they think it's a suicide. If there's enough information on the scene that indicates to them it may be a suicide, they just say it's a suicide and they don't look into it any further. And people have figured out how to manipulate that. We won't name any names there, Courtney Love. But they continue to do this, and I'm seeing these same patterns happen with these banker deaths. Now, there's been a lot of speculation. People have a lot of reasons. People are saying, oh, it's because the financial collapse is coming and they're killing these guys off one by one. I don't believe that. That's what this is at all. In any serious investigation, law enforcement is required to look into any potential motive for foul play. But when it comes to serial deaths among Wall Street bankers and technology personnel occurring repeatedly over the last 18 months in highly unusual circumstances, the deaths are almost instantaneously labeled non-suspicious by the police. But there are two glaring motives for foul play in almost all of these deaths involving Wall Street or global banks. First, major Wall Street banks hold hundreds of billions of dollars of life insurance on their workers, and even prior workers, effectively betting that an early death will pay off big for the corporation. The bank collects the death benefit as tax-free income, an added perk. In most cases, neither the employee, public, nor shareholders know exactly how much life insurance is held on any one individual. The death of a technology vice president could generate a $3 million tax-free payment to the Wall Street bank, and there is no public acknowledgement and no way to obtain the data. As of December 31st, 2013, the four largest Wall Street banks, J.P. Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and Citigroup, held a total of $68.1 billion in bank-owned life insurance assets, according to their financial filings. Since the ratio of life insurance in force to assets can run as high as 10 to 1, just these four banks alone may hold $681 billion or more in life insurance on their current or past workers. On March 21st of last year, Wall Street on Parade wrote to the regulator of national banks, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, seeking the following information under the Freedom of Information Act request. The number of deaths from 2008 through March 21st, 2014, on which J.P. Morgan Chase collected death benefits, the total face amount of bodily life insurance in force at J.P. Morgan, the total number of former and current employees of J.P. Morgan Chase who were insured under these policies, any peer study showing the same data comparing J.P. Morgan Chase with Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and Citigroup. The OCC responded by letter on April 18th, advising that it did have documents relevant to our request, but they were being withheld on the basis that they are, quote, privileged or contain trade secrets or commercial or financial information furnished in confidence that relates to the business, personal, or financial affairs of any person, or, quote, relate to a record contained in or related to an examination. 7 months after we received the trade secrets letter from the OCC, 54-year-old Melissa Milan, a woman who had the very type of peer review records we were seeking from the OCC, was brutally stabbed to death while jogging in Simsbury, Connecticut, a quaint, quiet town. Milan was senior vice president with Massachusetts Mutual Life Insurance Company, headquartered in Springfield, Massachusetts, who worked in the bank-owned life insurance area. That meant Milan was among a limited group outside of federal regulators who was in a position to have broad data on the death benefit claims being submitted by multiple banks and able to run studies to detect if anomalies were emerging. Million's death is still under intense investigation, and according to Fox News, which credits Wall Street on Parade for the original investigative report, Simsbury Police Chief Peter Inverston is looking into the bank-owned life insurance connection. Fox quotes Chief Invegerson as saying, I would say that it is something we looked at. We were familiar with it. We looked into it, and we continue to look into it. Well, that's looking at the motives that I've looked into these, the murder of Kurt Cobain and any of these other suspicious deaths. I mean, this fits that 100%. But is that the full story? Is the insurance thing strictly is that the full story, or is that strictly just the story that they give us that gets us to go back to sleep? That's a real question. That's the thing you always have to understand about almost any topic. When you look for an explanation for something, oftentimes you'll find an explanation that goes beyond what the publicly available narrative or publicly given narrative or explanation of any given story is, but you almost can always find more to the story than just that. And that's what I think is going on here. I think it probably has some to do with the insurance thing, but I think it also has more to do with the fact that all the leaked data and electronic wiretapping and shit that's been going on that's really increased over the past 12, 13 years. I think that could have a lot to do with it. Look at the position of these people who have mysteriously died. Look into their positions. These weren't just, climbers and people who were on the low end of the totem pole. These were big time involved people. So, as you know, most of these people, if you're involved in a criminal enterprise, and if you don't believe that the banking system is a 100% criminal enterprise, you need to have your head examined. Sure, it parades around as, a good thing and benign and everything else. And look, if you're a bank teller and you work in a bank or something, I'm not talking about you. Come on. But the point of the matter is, these people didn't get to where they were by just hard work and elbow grease. Okay? Not one bit. They got to where they were at in their positions because they probably did things that were necessarily legal. And I think that since we have, live in the age of the WikiLeaks and the whatever else there is, there's a lot of this information going into the hands of different individuals and cyber hacking and, all this stuff where all the information that years ago would have been kept secret, now out of the view, has now gone into the hands of the people that are running the show. I mean, who has the most power to be able to access this hidden data and this leaked data? The people who are running the show. And I think that's what's going on. I think the people who are in charge of the planet, who run the financial and banking systems, have been keeping tabs and have the ability to keep tabs and gain more information on their employees and what their employees might be up to than they have in the past. And I think a lot of they're just being systematically snuffed if they are, considered a person who has, think about all the money laundering and little dirty tricks and ways, finagling that goes on within the payoffs. I mean, these people are not making their money from their salaries. These big-time banker guys are not they're making their money from payoffs and under-the-table deals and everything else. But, again, no matter what you think, it's that same old usual thing, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? What's the answer to 99 out of 100 questions? Money. Again, on the Russia front here, this is very interesting in light of what we talked about earlier with Russia. There was a few months ago, there was a story that came out that said that, and again, this was one of those stories that came from shady news sources. So personally, I didn't know whether to believe it or not. But in light of this stuff, this is actually, Washington Post here. And a lot of this other stuff, may very well be true. I'd read something somewhere that Russia was saying, tell the people, tell the American people what you know about extraterrestrials and UFOs, or we'll do it for you. Well, now, this is from the Washington Post today. Russian official wants to investigate whether U.S. moon landings actually happened. The increasingly tense relationship between the United States and Russia might be about to face a new challenge: a Russian investigation into American moon landings. In an op-ed published by the Russian newspaper Izvestia on Tuesday, Vladimir Markin, a spokesman for the government's official investigative committee, argued that such an investigation could reveal new insights into the historical space journeys. Well, we know they were going to beat us. We faked it, so the Russians couldn't beat us. It was, it was as much a psychological victory as anything else. So, of course, it would be the Russians who would try to bring out the truth of this. According to a translation by the Moscow Times, Markin would support an inquiry into the disappearance of the original footage from the first moon landing in 1969 and the whereabouts of lunar rock, which was brought back to Earth during several missions. We are not contending that they did not fly to the moon and simply made a film about it, but all these scientific or perhaps cultural artifacts are part of the legacy of humanity, and their disappearance without a trace is our common loss. An investigation will reveal what happened. The op-ed is unlikely to raise worry among NASA officials. In 2009, NASA itself admitted that it had erased the original video recordings of the first moon landing among 200,000 other tapes in order to save money, according to Reuters. However, NASA has since restored copies of the landing using recordings from other sources such as CBS News. The organization says that due to restoration efforts, the recording's quality is superior to the original one that has gone missing, right? Right, because we wouldn't want those pesky originals to be around for anything, because, those would be unaltered digitally, so they'd be, if you're doing a forensic investigation into the moon landing hoax, that would be the number one piece of evidence you would want. So, of course, NASA, as per usual, is admitting that they destroy evidence. So very fascinating. So where are we at? I mean, does this mean that Russia is now, rich Russians have been buying up property all over the United States. Are we getting ready for a real Red Dawn scenario here? Remember that mayor? Was it the mayor, or I think who it was, in Red Dawn? You remember that? And he's in there, just fucking, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, just, gallivanting around with the Russians. Buddying up to them. And then they go out and execute those Americans. Remember, they started singing America the Beautiful? And they fucking line them up and mow them down, and he starts vomiting. Is that what we're faced with now? Join the Russians, join the Ruskies. Be on the side of the Ruskies if you're a real truther. I think I'm going to pass myself. All right, let's see what else we have here. Kennewick man closely related to modern Native Americans. Now, this is a very deceptive, just like anything pertaining to these ancient archaeological items. They give people the impression, I've seen this article splashed everywhere today on all the news websites, that, and all the headlines say the same thing. Kennewick man closely related to modern Native Americans. So what does that do? That leads people to believe, of course, that they're meaning, what you would consider modern day Native Americans, Indians, right? But if you actually read the information and read what it actually says, what they're saying is that this Kennewick man was actually closer related to Native Americans that originated particularly in South and Central America. But that's not what the headline says. The headline should read, Kennewick man closely related to South and Central Americans, or ancient South Americans, right? But that's not what it says. It says, Kennewick man closely related to modern Native Americans. Now, why is that important? Well, it's important because the commonly accepted belief that Native Americans all came across the Bering Strait land bridge, that whole hokey chestnut they continue to stand up on, when in reality, the evidence supports the fact that this seafaring culture, who predates all the other seafaring cultures that we know about by thousands of years, actually came around, around Africa and across South America. And this goes, right back to the thing I've talked about for years, that my belief is based on the information and the research that prior to the fall of Atlantis, and why it's been so difficult for people, because people always say, oh, this is Atlantis. No, this is Atlantis over here. And Atlantis can only be found somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean region. And there's all these arguments when everything that you read says it was a worldwide civilization. That it wasn't located in just one geographically centered location. It was all over the globe. And based on that and a lot of the other evidence, I believe that prior to the event that wiped out the Atlantean culture, that the world's land masses were still in a one big mass, Pangea, as we've been told, prior to this worldwide cataclysm, the Great Flood and whatnot, that then split apart all of the land masses and put them into their current locations. And of course, there's been, African artwork and artifacts and things found in parts of South America that if you were to, relock the part of Africa with South America, it would, just fit together like a puzzle piece. And that's what they found here with Kennewick man. The study showed that the boy was closely related to modern Native American groups, in particular those of South and Central America, 8,500 years ago. And these same seafaring cultures after that went around to Easter Island. They were circumnavigating the globe, going all around. But again, they want you to continue to believe that this has something to do with, people who came across the Bering Strait land bridge. I mean, the South Americans, they originated when they called the people who were, in places like Machu Picchu prior to the civilizations they supposedly connect that to. They called this part of what we now know as the United States as Amaruca. That's where America comes from, the land of the plumed serpent. And they believe that this whole land was ruled over by these plumed serpents. That's why so much of the Native American stuff, there's so much that resembles Aztec and Mayan stuff, because they came up for the opposite direction of what we're told. We're told, no, they came down through the Bering Strait land bridge. No, that's not what the facts tell us. Arsonists torched storerooms with 4,000-year-old artifacts. Irreparable damage inflicted to antiquity salvage during excavation of Tel Kishan near Galilee's Mount Tabor. Again, as I've documented for many, many years here on the show, the continued and outright destruction of history, specifically in these areas like Galilee and whatnot, where these Amorites came from. Get it straight, folks. And I cover all this stuff about the Amorites in my Lost Secrets of Ancient America Volume 1 film. Get it straight. If you're talking about Celts, if you're talking about Vikings, if you're talking about... It doesn't make a difference. Any of these, they're all the same. They're all the Amorites. And this is what they are trying to keep us from finding out. Arsonists in northern Israel torched 2 storerooms filled with artifacts found at a nearby salvage excavation at Tel Kishan on Monday. Some of the antiquities over 4,000 years old. Why would there continue to be widespread destruction of these things? All of these artifacts go back. These are the absolute proof that we had giant human-like gods that became the basis of all world religions and seeded mankind with knowledge and everything else. And, you would think that religion would want this information to come out. You would think that world religions, and people who run these world religions would love this information to come out and would want it to come out because it would prove all of their beliefs, right? No, they don't want it to come out. And you think the scientists want this stuff to come out? No. That's why they put us and created these divisional lines of science and religion so they can keep us in a box and keep us from ever really learning the real truth. So science doesn't want the truth of these ancient artifacts and ancient sites and whatnot to come out, and neither does religion, neither one. Why is it? Because they are a threat to their status quo. And that is just not acceptable. So again, continued stuff here with the destruction of ancient antiquities. It makes me sick to my stomach every time I read one, but it also proves me more and more right that, this is why we've got to cover this stuff now. This is why it's important for me to make these films like The Lost Secrets and do this rock wall research and try to uncover this thing, because if we're running out of time. There aren't going to be any more generations to come that are going to be able to do this, because the powers that be are going to destroy it before we get a chance to analyze it and put the real truth of it out there for the people. Sex, drugs, and Philistines. Another group related to the Amorites. A biblical psychedelic scene. The now lackluster central Israeli town of Yavne was apparently once the center of a thriving drug scene, according to Israeli research. Oh, yeah. I covered back in, 2007, 2008, the story about, how Moses probably was tripping on DMT and shit because they found all the alkalis that you need to make dimethyltryptamine right there, where he went up into the big alien mothership. Cutting-edge technology has allowed archaeologists to find traces of hallucinogenic materials used over 3,000 years ago by the biblical Philistine people for spiritual rituals. Mind-altering potions and plants were commonplace in many ancient cultures, which believed that using the substances intensified the mystical experiences of worshippers. In some cases, in which adherents had to endure physically painful ceremonies, the substances also served to numb the pain. Well, yeah, I mean, they try to make it sound like that's some ancient fucking bygone thing of the past. I mean, you could still have a mystical religious experience right now today. Go get yourself some fucking shrooms or something, man. Whew. Eat a couple grams of those and call me in 4 hours. Yeah. Be sure and tell me how many times you saw God during that 4 hours. I'll tell you what. My point is, this has been going on for thousands of years, and, I don't know why it's such a shock that they would be digging into these ancient societies. Oh, we found evidence that people were tripping balls and seeing God thousands of years ago. Really? Now, what was your first fucking clue, buddy? No shit, Sherlock. Got news for you. Motherfuckers are doing it right now. Somewhere on this planet right now, as we speak, somebody is in a room, in a dark room at that, or a closet maybe, with the black lights on and Dark Side of the Moon playing, and somebody right now was seeing some serious shit. Tripping balls. And, for something like that, when you look at how many things, it's always interesting to see what things as humans have survived from time immemorial. And really, when you get down to it, not that many have. I mean, what meals and, childbearing and education and labor. You look at all those things. Okay, there's always been people working. There's always been people doing jobs. There's always been people eating. There's always been people worshiping. Well, there's always been people tripping balls and seeing shit and talking to God in the fucking palm of their hand. And, I'm melting, dude. So it's not a shock to me. You ever seen that old Ten Commandments movie? Charlton Heston one. Watch Moses in that motherfucker when he's about to go up on the mountain, dude. Swear to God, they even nailed it in that old movie. They made it look like the fucking motherships on top of the mountain. Smoke coming out of it and shit, and lights are flickering. He went up. Yeah, of course he went up there and talked to fucking God and talked to fucking aliens. He was tripping balls. Archaeologists discover ancient mounds in Iran's Kerman province. As I've stated in my research into these mounds throughout the planet, mounds have been found almost everywhere on the planet, but it's just amazing that, for instance, there are mounds in Saudi Arabia that are identical to mounds that have been found in Moundville, Alabama. And anywhere these ancient Amorites went, we seem to find these similar types of mounds. And I, for years, have been wondering if there were any mounds found in Iran. We know they've been found in China and other places, but this gives me the information I've been looking for, because we know that Iran has been on the list. They want Iran. It's why they've been telling us for 30 fucking years that Iran, we're going to war with Iran next week. How many fucking decades have we been hearing that now? It's because Iran still has, China too, they still have some of the last untouched ancient sites on the planet. And they still have things that will yield secrets and information for us into the future that will blow the lid off all of this ancient information and all this ancient archaeology. And that is, of course, why they, any country that you hear about that is considered a country of interest or a terrorist country or anything else like that, or you can bet your bottom dollar, whatever the new threat is, they are going to have antiquities there. I mean, I remember a few years ago, right about the time when, I say a few years ago, it's been more than a few years ago now. Time just goes by so quickly. But I'd only maybe been on the air a couple of years. This is maybe 2008, 2009. Right about the time Obama came into office the first time. And I had covered some information on the show about the Ark of the Covenant supposedly maybe being found in Yemen. And I said, well, there's your answer. You're going to start to see Yemen being touted as the big enemy and where all the terrorists are coming from. And lo and behold, I was right. It started happening right after that. So anywhere of these countries of interest, you can always tell whether or not what the real reason is for going into these countries. Not oil, not anything else, not because they're terrorists, but because they have antiquities. They are not allowing the Smithsonian and these other world powers to get their dick fingers on. And this is the proof I've been looking for the longest time about Iran. I've known it was there. They have things like the Behistun inscription there. We've known it was a treasure trove the elite have wanted to get their hands on for years, but this further proves it. Archaeologists have found over 40 ancient mounds in Iran's southeastern province of Kerman. Archaeologists from Germany's Tübingen University and the Iranian Research Center for Cultural Heritage and Tourism discovered 42 ancient mounds near the city of Farib. The mounds are scattered in an area of 8,000 kilometers and date back to the period of time between the pre-Neolithic and Islamic eras. Wow. The mounds were discovered during the first phase of archaeological excavations in the area. The project was conducted over the past 3 months with the aim of studying the cultural exchange between Mesopotamia and the southeastern areas of ancient Persia during the Bronze Age. Archaeologists used drones to take aerial photos, three-dimensional pictures, and topographic maps of the excavation site. The next phase of archaeological excavations in the area will begin in March 2016. And so, if I was a betting man, I would say that somewhere between now and March of 2016, we will probably start to see some shit pop off in Iran. Mark that down. Remember I said that. If they start talking about the Ides of March next year and marching us towards war with Iran, you'll know I said it here first. Let's see what else we got. Michael Douglas is supported by Catherine Zeta-Jones and their children Dylan and Carries as he receives $1 million Jewish Nobel Prize in Israel. This is an interesting case. A lot of people, if you didn't know this, yes, Michael Douglas and, of course, his father, Kirk Douglas, who, by the way, is still alive at like 95 years old. I came across a lot of information on this family when as I've been doing my research for the spellcasters, because Kirk Douglas was one of the original Hollywood stars. There was many of them, almost all of them in the original days, who changed their names from these very obvious Jewish names to more Americanized sounding names, so they, wouldn't be found out, so they could reach larger audiences who wouldn't, not pay attention to them if they found out they were Jewish. And of course, fucking Kirk Douglas, I tell you what a sick son of a bitch he is. I can't believe that motherfucker is still. I mean, you ever notice how these sick pedophile Jew motherfuckers live to be, 95, 100 years old, but your mom or dad or your grandmother or grandfather die at 50? You notice that? I mean, Kirk Douglas, Jesus Christ, that guy. I mean, no wonder, because Michael Douglas has the reputation of being this, a legendary womanizer and everything else. Well, goddamn, where do you think he got it from? He got it honest. That fucking dad of his, man. Go read the shit that he did to Natalie Wood. Beat her up, did permanent damage to her and shit, raped her. The guy's notorious for beating up women and raping them and everything else. And he was, a couple of years ago, I read a story, he was at one of these award shows a year or two ago, and I think he made some comments about, I don't remember who it was. Maybe it was Taylor Swift or something. This guy's 95 years old. And he's like, I'd fuck that. I'd hit that right now. Still at 95 years old, this guy's talking about, I'd tap that 18-year-old right now. Jesus Christ. He used to take Michael Douglas to strip clubs when he was like 10. But anyway, I just think this is hilarious. There's so many people that, they see somebody like Michael Douglas and they think, oh, well, he doesn't have a Jewish last name. And that, why is he getting a Jewish Nobel Prize? Well, that's why. Concealing that origin, as they like to do. All right. I think that's just about all we've got to cover for you here tonight, folks. But we will be back tomorrow with lots more information. I want to thank everybody out there who contributed to getting us back up on the air. Thank you so much to everybody. I don't have everybody's names right in front of me. I said I'd tell people's names on the air. I don't have everybody's names right in front of me, but you know who you are out there. Everybody out there that made contributions. Like I said, I wanted to be back up at the first of this month, but it's taken me until now, the middle of the month, to get back up and running and everything. But after we paid for all of the services and everything to get the show back up here, that's really left us almost nothing. So please go to my website, theglobalreality.com. We have the Global Reality June 2015 monthly operating cost thing there. Hit that up, make a contribution, or use our donate button. All the ways you can support our work there are at our website, theglobalreality.com. Please do so, so that we can continue to get our work done and reach our goals and continue to make, these shows available for everyone out there. We have very little in the kitty to operate with now. I still need about 500 or 600 to finish the spellcasters. Just anything you can throw at us, whatever you can spare, as much or as little as you can. Find a way to do that in whichever way you choose at my website, theglobalreality.com. My name is Josh Reeves. I love each and every one of you, and we'll see you next time. Have yourselves a great one. Take care.